The true value of TikTok is the incrementality effect and the halo effect that it has.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook presented by PDQ, Pretty Damn Quick. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 142, and my guest is Gillian Bell. In this episode, I sit down with Gillian, who's the Chief Revenue and Growth Officer at Comfrt, one of the fastest-growing D2C apparel brands in the country. Gillian shares her journey from agency marketer to leading growth at a brand that went from $17 million in year 2 to over $600 million in 2025. We talk about how Comfrt built a powerful community around mental health, connection, and creators, how platforms like TikTok Shop and the new mobile app are driving growth, and while Gillian believes AI will reshape every function of modern marketing and commerce. Great show. I know that you'll enjoy it. And before we get started, a quick thank you, as always, to Max Brandstetter of the Wild Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Gillian Bell, who's the Chief Revenue and Growth Officer at retailer Comfrt. Gillian is a global growth architect with a career spanning from Ireland, London, New York, the Caribbean, and Los Angeles. A specialist in driving business outcomes across both brand and agency ecosystems, she's engineered growth for industry titans, including WPP's, here it comes, Syzygy, and the Maroma Founders Network. She said I said that right. Gillian has a proven track record of scaling trailblazing brands such as PayPal, Avis, Masterclass, and marketing authority Mark Ritson. Currently, Gillian serves as the Chief Revenue and Growth Officer at Comfrt, the fastest growing D2C e-commerce brand of all time. That's pretty good, and we're going to hear all about Comfrt shortly. She's pioneering a next-generation business model alongside founder and CEO Hudson Leogrande that integrates creators, culture, and community as the primary engines of revenue and market dominance. Comfrt is a lifestyle and apparel brand redefining what it means to drive seismic growth in a highly competitive category. Gillian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for making me feel so welcome on this beautiful Friday morning.
Well, thanks for getting up so early on the West Coast. Appreciate it. And for those, and we're going to talk a lot about your background and certainly Comfrt, but I want to make sure that I say this, for those that don't know the Comfrt brand, it's a newer brand for me and for my family. Gillian was nice enough to set us up with some product, and I can't tell you how many people have seen the product and have really loved it and wanted to get it for themselves.
Love to hear that. Love to hear that, Mark.
All right. So we start these shows, 142 of them now, Gillian. We start them all the same way. We like to get the first story from the guest, something that might have happened in your upbringing that suggested that your career would take the shape that it has.
Yeah, so I'm sure you can guess by my accent. I'm Irish, born and bred. I grew up in the west of Ireland. With my mom, my dad, and my 3 sisters. So a family of women, as we like to say. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was working in the corporate world. And I think after about 8 years of nonstop rain in beautiful Sligo, my mom said, that's it, I'm going back to Dublin. I need to be back where we're thriving in the city, my friends, my family. And I think when, growing up, it was a very happy household, a very busy household, as you can imagine, with all the girls. My poor dad never got a word in edgeways. But both my parents went through very significant career changes in their sort of late 30s, early 40s. My mom went back to work. She started working in the airport. She was like the number one sales person for Lancome. Total social, a butterfly. They used to say she could sell sand to the Arabs. But she came from an entrepreneur background. All of her family were founders. Her brother Brendan has one of the longest standing retail stores in Dublin, Stock Design. It's a beautiful homeware store. Her brother Paddy is also very successful entrepreneur, and so I think that was just something she grew up with, right, from a very early age. And she started her own business also in retail, another successful retail business, Children Clothing, and it's still standing today in Dublin, just off down by the Gaiety Theatre. I think, I learned from that you need, different things from your career at different points in your life, right? Like my mom decided to be a stay-at-home mom, but then she decided to go back. And I think that sort of instilled in me, I guess, a learning that you can kind of zigzag and you can pivot at different points in your life, and be very successful, right? It may not happen for you in your 20s, but that doesn't mean in your 30s it might not happen, in your 40s, in your 50s. There's always opportunity. And my dad was exactly kind of the same. He did not, I think he worked through the corporate world and he realized this is just not for me. He loved having flexibility in his career. He was the one of the first people to embrace remote working. So he left the corporate world and he became a self-taught art dealer, studying 17th and 18th century art. My dad was incredibly bright, and he went into this business area and industry not really knowing anything about art and became one of the most renowned art dealers in Ireland. He was the person behind, so all those incredible paintings that you would see in Sotheby's and Christie's, that was my dad. And he traveled all around Ireland, all around the UK. And he actually has one of his most special finds is hanging in Ireland's National Gallery in Dublin, a painting by Thaddeus Jones. So every time we go back to Dublin, we go to the National Gallery to have a look at it. And my children see Sinead and look up and like, that's Granddad's painting. He didn't paint it, but he was the finder of it. And I think I learned from both of them that you don't have to follow like a traditional path to be successful. And my dad in particular, he was very liberal, I think, for his time, even though he probably grew up in quite a strict household. He was very liberal, and he always told us that, we had to work hard. Nothing was ever going to be handed to us in life. And that education, was incredibly important. So my parents sent us to really good schools. I actually went to the same school that my mom went to in Dublin. It was a Catholic school. So you can imagine, very strict, a lot of discipline. My dad really helped me in terms of like, he was the one actually that got me into marketing because I just didn't know what to fill in, to sit down and fill in those forms for university. And I had no idea what I wanted to do at 17. I was the youngest in my class. So I was like, just didn't know what I wanted to do. And he was like, do marketing. It'll give you so many opportunities. You can travel. He was the one I think that really instilled that sense of adventure in me, working, traveling, and taking risks. Like I remember he said to me, I won the green card, right, in my early 20s. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Should I go to America? Should I go? And he's like, look, 10 years from now, you'll be married. You'll have lots of children. You'll have lots of commitments. You have to take these risks. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, I'll pay for your flight to come back home. So, yeah, my parents were very influential, I think, in my career path and the path that I've chosen.
That's great. Good story. Really lays the groundwork. So you go to university, you've got this marketing thought in your head. And am I correct to say that before you got to Comfrt, most of your career, all of your career was on the agency side?
Yes, majority of my career. I have worked on brand side too, but studied marketing in university, and then I got my degree at Trinity College, then went on to do public relations. And then from the very get-go, I started working agency side, small consultancy agency. So from DTA marketing to Slattery's. And I think what I learned in Dublin and what I really loved was When I worked at Slattery's, I worked on brands like Moat& Shandon, Wolf Blast, Lexus, Nokia. But the autonomy and the opportunity to really make an impact on the brand and work really closely with the clients to, shape what the campaigns were, bring those to life, and to really feel like I was contributing. And I think that was something that really got me excited. And the variety, right? One minute you're working, for, a very successful champagne brand and you're at the Polo. And then the next minute you're at a press event for Lexus with all the motoring journalists. And I think that variety from the agency world gave me really the versatility to be able to adapt to different brands in different categories, brands going through different moments of change, whether that's in their growth trajectory or their position in market, or if they're needing to diversify. And I think for me, the versatility piece is, a skill set that I've really honed on, that I can adapt to a lot of different situations. But I also can recognize that if I'm not an expert in an area, because you can't be an expert in everything, right? That's just impossible. And I think it's important to know where you're maybe not as strong as, but bring those people in who have the expertise or the experience to help complement you or close those gaps.
You're giving me great sound bites for the wrap up of the show, where we give the listener 3 key takeaways that they can bring back to their personal or professional lives. So I'm keeping track of them as you go. When I talk to folks that have been on the agency side, many of them talk about the things you just did, about the reasons why they loved being on the agency side. But I'm interested, some also talk about the fact that they felt like they couldn't effectuate change. They could bring ideas to the table, but then ultimately it's really up to the brand and the people who are brand side to get the execution done. Did you have that as a challenge?
Sometimes what I always try to build within the team, whether it was working at, Syzygy, or with the Founders Network, formerly known as Wake the Bear, I always tried to build a team that felt like they were just an extension of the brand's marketing team. And I remember working with Mark Ritson and their marketing team, and actually the lead guy there actually saying back to me, he was introducing us, to another partner, and he was like, "Oh, these guys come from, our agency, but I don't see them as an agency. They are just part of our marketing team." And to me, that was like the best compliment, like hearing the client say that back to me. And because my career has been focused more on the, digital performance side, I would always go with the, back everything up with data, right? Because once you have the rationale there, like you can always go with sort of like your intuition and your gut, but you can't argue with the numbers. Once you have the data to support that, you can obviously present that in a very meaningful and convincing and persuading way. Now, it depends what the hierarchy of the decision making is, right? If you work for a very corporate brand where there's lots of layers, if I think of, say, like working for Avis Budget Group, that's a challenge. But what I used to do is like build the relationship with my client, build a very strong relationship, which is, trust. They could rely on me. Like anytime they call me, I would pick up that phone and I would just be on it, because I would always be thinking about what motivates them? What does success look like for them? And if I can enable them to also be successful, then I build that trust with them and then they go to the table for me. But it's still different. It's still different to like, working directly for the brand. And particularly, in my current role where I see that like we're a very flat organization and we move, like decisions get made in real time. We don't make decisions like, well, let's come back to that next month, or if it's next month, it's not an important decision for us. We move at the speed of light and we don't have that kind of hierarchy that slows us down.
Static checkouts are costing you money. Every shopper sees the same offers and too many walk away. That's why Shopify's fastest growing brands use PDQ, pretty damn quick. the checkout segmentation platform. PDQ personalizes the checkout experience by creating tailored flows for each customer segment, whether they're first-time buyers, high spenders, or returning VIPs. Their platform runs ongoing A/B tests, automatically sets the best performing experience, and keeps optimizing for higher conversion and AOV. The result? More completed checkouts, less abandonment, and millions in uplift. Discover your brand's optimal checkout with PDQ at prettydamnquick.com. Let's talk about Comfrt, Comfrt. So Comfort without the O. Tell us about the business for those that may not know it.
Comfrt is a D2C lifestyle and apparel brand. You know, we are rooted in sort of three core pillars. Mental health is very important to us. Community, we're very much a community first brand. Everything and anything we do starts, firstly with our community. And I think that's just been integral to our success. And lastly, connection. What I mean by connection is people feel something when they see Comfrt. It's different to any other apparel brand out there. And I think that really stems from our founder and CEO, Hudson, who I work really closely with. He wanted to create something more than just another apparel brand. In our brains, we have the rational side and we have the emotional side. And the rational side, we really kind of, the premise of the brand is to make comfortable, high quality clothing affordable and accessible to everybody. And I think that's a very, very important attribute and kind of value within the business. And I think that we're recognized for that. Like, our pricing is very, very accessible, but also the quality, we index very high on quality, and that comes out in our customer surveys and customer research. And I think what's extraordinary about Comfrt, and I saw this from the very beginning, when I was being interviewed for the role, literally I told Hudson this, the hairs on the back of my neck went up. I mean, he's a magnetic force. If you haven't met him, Mark, he is just an incredible founder and visionary. His passion is, I've never seen anything like it. I'm always like, we need to bottle this, right? And then sell it in Air One. That would be amazing. But I think the speed at which we've grown has just been extraordinary. I came up with a new definition, which is supersonic, seismic, explosive growth. I've just never seen anything like it. And I've worked with a lot of high growth brands going through pivotal change, whether they're scaling up, starting up, or needing to transform. But if I tell you the growth, you might actually fall off your chair. I mean, I joined 2024. I was employee number 8. We had 9 employees that year, and we went from 17. It was our second year in business. We went from 17 million, which we'd done the previous year, just with Hudson and Kimberly, our director of influencer marketing. So that in itself was insane. And then in 2024, we did 170 million, which with 9 people, yeah. And last year 2025, we closed at 640 million.
That's just, you told me this when I first met you, and I'm still scratching my head on that kind of growth. So what's the secret sauce? I mean, obviously you're not going to give away all the secrets, but, what is the secret sauce to growth?
I think quite simply, in a way, it starts all with the customer, right? And I think we hold the customer at the very, very center of everything that we do. Our community, like I said earlier, we're community first brand, and our community is made up of our creators. So we have 500 dedicated creators that produce UGC content for us. They're an incredible team of very loyal, highly engaged creators that, we have hundreds of pieces of content coming out every single week. That's why, we're the masters of UGC. And it's all to do with, volume, velocity, diversification. And I think that's why a lot of brands just can't catch us because we've just excel in that area. So we've our creators, then in adjacent to that, we've brand ambassadors. So these are people who sign up to our brand ambassador program. It's a huge part of our kind of product seeding. And if you think of like traditional ways of marketing, like word of mouth and kind of advocacy and amplifying that, our product seeding is just on a monumental level. We have about 150,000 people in our brand ambassador program. And that really helps to kind of build the organic piece within the business. Whereas our creators, we put paid ads behind, whether we're running on TikTok or Meta or Snapchat or AppLovin. And then we have our affiliates. If you look at TikTok, for example, they have just come in and they're changing the game within the commerce space. 500,000 affiliates on TikTok. And with TikTok introducing GMV Max last year, which that looks at both organic and paid, it's just changed the game, right? Anybody could come in. You could create a video on TikTok, and all of a sudden that video could have 5 million views. We really lean into TikTok. We're number one on TikTok shops for fashion and apparel in the US. And TikTok shops, it's an incredible platform. There really is nothing else out there like it. It's a brand, it's a brand discovery accelerator engine combined with the purchase accelerator engine. And the speed at which things can take off on TikTok, I mean, I've just never seen anything quite like it.
So let me interrupt you because TikTok Shops is something that I'm interested in for lots of different reasons. I'm wondering how I'm going to be one of those 500,000 affiliates. But all kidding aside, the economics of TikTok Shop for you, margins
Mhm.
not quite as good as your D2C channel. That's kind of my first question around that. And then secondly, do you find that you're able to acquire customers on TikTok shops and then bring them into the fold as a D2C shopper, or do they tend to be TikTok only?
Yeah, it's a really, really, really good question. And we've spent a lot of time analyzing, measuring the impact of TikTok. It's kind of twofold. So you definitely see like there's different purchase behavior for a customer on TikTok than there is on D2C site, right? Brands that are really successful, for example, in the fashion and apparel space, their AOVs or average order values on TikTok shops may be between 40 or 50% lower than what they get on their D2C site. The thing with TikTok shops though is it's impulse driven. So we see like repeat rate is considerably higher. The in terms of like the frequency between first purchase and second purchase and third purchase is much shorter. They're less of what you call basket builders. So they're really buying maybe one item, maybe two. So there's a lot of nuances on TikTok shops. Having said that, so we measure it not just as we look at it as a standalone platform, but the true value of TikTok is the incrementality effect and the halo effect that it has. So, for example, if we run content on TikTok shops and it's really, really successful, we then deploy that across all of our other platforms, right? So we use it as like a testing bed to see what works. We don't dictate to the algorithm. We launch 100, videos. We let the algorithm tell us what's working. And of the 100 videos, maybe five take off, right? Those are the ones then we start to deploy more ad spend and start to scale those. The second piece then really is so it's the testing round, and then the second piece is like we look at the overall impact. So we use triangulation when it comes to measurement. We have Northbeam, who's our multi-touch attribution model. We then have Workmagic, who we do incrementality testing on, and we look at in-platform data, and then that enables us to give us an understanding of the incremental effect and the halo effect. So the profitability side. TikTok Shops for us is profitable as a standalone platform, but the true, I guess, impact from a scale and profitability side is on our website. Some customers will always want to stay in that ecosystem and they won't want to migrate. So you don't want to force them, right? You want to make sure if actually that's their world and that's where they want to stay, you want to nurture them. So, TikTok Shops have recently launched their CRM program. We work really closely with them. As you can imagine, we have a seat at the table in terms of like their product development, their UX, UI, consumer behavior, purchase behavior. So we work very closely with their product teams. But at the same time, we want to leverage TikTok shops to drive growth on our D2C site. Because as soon as we have those customers come to our store, right, then we can build retention, we can build loyalty. We launched our app, at the back end of last year, which has had incredible success in terms of the number of downloads, over 200,000 downloads to date. And I think between TikTok shops, our D2C site, and our app, we're creating these unique experiences and I guess storefronts for customers to come and to engage and to have an incredible experience, right?
What's the thought behind the app? Is there feature and function that is in the app that's not available on native web? I've talked to lots of folks about apps. Some people like them, some people don't. What were the one or two things where you said, we need an app and here's how we're going to leverage it?
I mean, as an apparel brand, we operate in a highly competitive space, right? But I think our unique point of differentiation is our community. They are incredibly engaged. We have such a high affinity with our community. Our repeat rate, which is, we're an outlier in this space, our repeat rate is almost, 50%, which is incredible. Yeah. And we've worked really hard. It wasn't like that at day one, right? We've worked really hard to get it to that. We hit the daily cap on Meta for the number of reposts. So every time a customer shares a piece of content, a picture, and then they tag Comfrt, we repost that on our social profiles and we keep hitting our cap. I think the other piece of this is we have a Slack channel that I look at every single day called Comfrt Stories. And it reminds me of the whole, Hudson's vision to create something more than an apparel brand. And now that is like echoed through our community. So on any given day, Mark, I could see a beautiful story from like a mom sharing, pictures of their daughter going to, some really, really challenging, life stage events like having to bring their child for chemo, or going to like a feeding therapy session. And the one thing that they feel safe and comfortable in is their Comfrt sweat set, their little hoodie, whether it's strawberry swirl, they get some type of, they feel something, they feel comfortable, they feel safe to somebody going through, very stressful, high anxiety point in their lives. And Comfrt makes them feel something. And I think that's incredible. And I think for us, the premise of launching the app is to really give people a more curated experience, right? So we're going to be launching our loyalty club in a couple of weeks, or our loyalty membership in a couple of weeks, which is super exciting. And I think with the app space, that really, to download an app, you have to have a certain level of engagement with the brand, right? For us, our customers, once they come in for themselves, whether they're purchasing for themselves, whether they're gifting for somebody in their family, they just want to keep coming back. And I think it's pretty extraordinary where an apparel brand has such a strong community that I've never seen this in my career, but when Comfrt goes into a household, and you saw this, right? When I gave you the sweat sets and the loungewear for your family, it goes into a household. Mom comes home with, her airplane mode sweat set. She's going on her next travel adventure. And then dad is like, "Oh, I want this too, but like I want it in, I want this in a black. Can you get me a sweat set?" Then all of a sudden, the 14-year-old teenager who never wears anything that her parents would wear, she wouldn't be seen, caught dead in her parents' clothing, wants a sweat set. And then all of a sudden, the dog wants a Comfrt paw set, and the cat wants a paw set. So it has this like ripple effect in a household. And I think the thing with the app space is it really encourages and builds that kind of continued affinity, engagement, loyalty, as well as advocacy. And I think that's, for us, really, 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 really important for us as a brand. And, we're always looking at areas of expansion. We're huge now in the US. If you haven't heard of like Comfrt comfort and hoodies in the same sentence. We say you might be living under a rock. Um, but there's huge opportunity, and I think we're coming from a growth perspective, and my role specifically, because I'm in charge of like growth and revenue as well as working across the business. Like my role is much more expansive now. It's not just marketing. I'm looking for the white space. Like, where is the white space that we can really thrive? We don't look for small incremental gains. We look for seismic growth. And I think the opportunity with app, with our loyalty program, is part of that. I still think we have, we're only 3 years young. We have such huge opportunity within the US market. And I think with our investment in product innovation, product expansion, and newness, like I'm so excited. So, because I've seen, we've had several inflection points within the business. Last year, for example, when we launched Airplane Mode, which is our sweat set, oversized, slightly weighted sweat set that has the built-in eye mask. And we launched that in the middle of July, which is summertime, everybody's had an offer on their holidays, right? But I was like, guys, huge moment that matters in July. It's a travel moment. You've got 4th of July. You also have Amazon Prime. And I was like, we need to lean into that and launch, this very, what we could see would be a very viral product, but also has utility built into it. It was insane, Mark. We basically doubled the floor of the business overnight. And what was even more incredible, that momentum maintained. So it wasn't like we had a very successful weekend and then it kind of went back to normal. It didn't. It 3x'd our net new customer acquisition in a very, very short period of time, right? We did a mega live for 10 hours on TikTok shops. We deployed all of our content with our creators across AppLovin, Snapchat, Meta, YouTube, Pinterest. And it was just incredible. So I think for us, like within the space that we're in, we are very committed and passionate about bringing newness and innovation to this category and making sure that we continue to have incredible quality and colorways. Like color, we talk about color equals emotion, which equals conversion. When we drop a new color, our community just love it. We dropped the year before that, we dropped crimson, right, which is a very bright red. I would traditionally associate that more with like the holidays and with Christmas. And we dropped that in the middle of, it was the back end of June, almost doubled the floor of the business. So we're outliers in the space. We don't follow the path of anybody else. And I think this is something actually I learned from Hudson, which is like, look at what other brands are doing, like really successful brands are doing, especially founder-based brands. Take it back to the business and think about how we can do it better. We don't follow anybody else.
The devil is in the details. You probably have heard that phrase time and time again in your professional life. Projects get started with great intentions, but you no longer have the time to pay attention to the little things that could make the difference between success and failure. At Details Interactive, you can discuss your business with a seasoned direct-to-consumer marketing executive who's helped launch and grow web businesses and integrate multi-channel marketing initiatives. Learn more at detailsinteractive.com. As we wrap up the show, let's just quickly talk about AI and how you're thinking about it, having it be helpful for the business.
The rate of it's just extraordinary, right? The rate of change, literally only in the last even 3 months that we've seen in AI, is nothing short of incredible. And, as a business, we're very passionate about AI. We talk about, it shouldn't just sit in technology. I mean, we've basically got 6 pillars within the business. We've technology, finance, product, CX, marketing, and then kind of our whole kind of inventory buying piece. And AI needs to be embedded and weaved into all parts of the business. And I think part of our kind of values, we've got several values that we kind of repeat over and over again. One of the key values is keep growing and keep learning. And I think that's something that I've really learned as a leader, that there's so much change happening right now for people in the marketing space, but it's not just the marketing space. AI is affecting every part of your business. And if you don't realize that and at least try to recognize it and learn, you're going to get left behind. And I think for us, it's like bring people into the business who are, AI first, AI driven, AI native, but that they can take more of a holistic view of the business and see where those problem points are or fractures are. And when we look at like the advent of, say, agentic commerce, that is directly affecting, right, how we're searching, right? I don't know about you, but like for me, I toggle between Claude, then I go back to ChatGPT, then I'm in Gemini, but how search behavior is changing and how this is influencing how brands are going to be discovered, how people are going to get to their decision-making process, like moving through that sort of like awareness, discovery, consideration to purchase journey. AI is having a huge impact. And if we think about, AI agents and the influence that they can have over that decision making and shorten that path to purchase, it can have a huge and kind of compound effect. The same way, I mean, to sort of what we've seen with, say, UGC and the creator economy, how they've come in and just completely disrupted, right, the whole customer or consumer path to purchase. So I think for us, it's staying ahead of that. It's making sure for us as well that every new tool or platform we bring into the business, because of the rate of change is so fast, that we ensure that they are, leading from the front when it comes to AI. And I would say, like, when you go back to the rate of change, it's gone from sort of, prompting to reasoning to iteration, right? Which is incredible. It's like literally just in the past couple of months, which is insane, to then like predictive. And that's what's going to happen, right? And I think there's also an opportunity there. I mean, people's roles will be affected, right? Jobs will be affected. But when one door closes, I think another one opens. Then that can mean that you get to work on way more exciting stuff, right? I even look at, my Slack, which is like the longest runway you've ever seen, and trying to use AI to try and consolidate that, right? Like, what are things that are really, really important that actually really require my mind share? Whereas what are the things that I don't need to be looking at today or I can delegate off? So for me, I think what's exciting is like if I can spend more time on the things that are going to drive impact and value for the business, that's going to be much more beneficial than me spending, hours and hours and hours of going through information that really there's maybe like two or three things I need to pull out from that. I'm excited by it.
We're going to need a part two episode because I have like 30 more questions that I would have asked, but we're down to the end of the show. We do a 2-minute drill. Gillian, 7 questions, 1-word answer. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, a brand that you admire or that inspires you.
I think Rare Beauty, the impact they've made within the mental health space has just been incredible with Rare Impact Fund. And this is something we're very passionate about. We work very closely with the ADAA as part of our, supporting mental health and our community. So yeah, the Rare Impact Fund, I think, is incredible.
Favorite app on your phone?
Oh, at the moment, Icon. My husband's obsessed with skiing, so we're always looking at the Icon app.
Last website other than Amazon that you shopped from?
Oh, Comfort app last night. I made a purchase.
Okay.
Yes.
Something that you're not good at but wish that you were?
Skiing, even though we ski all the time, I'm still not great at it. My children are now passing me out.
Charitable organization that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I've just mentioned them, ADAA, really small, incredible team that we contribute to. And we've gone from just a donor to an active participant. And I think that's been incredible and very exciting for our team as well as the people at ADAA.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
I think to help people going through really tough times. I think, life is not linear. That's something I've learned through my own personal experiences. We all hit bumps along the way. Some are more major than others. But I think you never know when you're climbing up that ladder, always have your hand out to see who you can help along the way because yeah, life is all about people and about connections. And I'm a big believer in collaboration and supporting people.
That's good. Good one. Other than family, what's your most prized possession?
I'm looking up at it right now. It's a signed Snaffles print. My father was a very passionate about Snaffles. He's an artist, and when I first moved to LA, I went to a thrift store and I saw the print, and I had to buy it. And I got it for a bargain. It's worth about $1,000, but I think I paid $50 for it. But I look at it every day and I think of my gorgeous dad.
Gillian, where can people reach out to you on social media if they would like to?
Probably LinkedIn is the best spot. I go by Jill, G, not J, Gill hyphen Bell, Bell.
Okay, great. Hey, thanks for doing this. It was great. I really enjoyed it. Good stuff for the listeners, and we'll catch up down the road.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Gillian Bell for coming on the Marketing Playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, community is the real growth engine. Comfort's success isn't just about great product. It's about building a movement around mental health, connection, and belonging, powered by thousands of creators and brand ambassadors who authentically represent the brand. And number 2, platforms like TikTok Shop aren't just sales channels. They're discovery engines. Even with lower margins, TikTok drives impulse buying, high repeat rates, and powerful halo effects across the entire business, making it a critical part of the brand's growth strategy. And number 3, AI will touch every part of the business, from marketing and creative to operations and customer engagement. Gillian believes AI will fundamentally reshape how brands operate, and companies that embrace it early will have a major advantage. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, the devil is in the details.